I felt helpless, and yet, by an odd train of circumstances, it was indeed through me that safety came. In the meantime, if it came to mutiny, there were only 7 out of the 26 on whom we knew we could rely, and out of these 7, one was a boy. The next morning, the captain gave the crew permission to spend the day ashore rather than give them the chance to defy orders. A small notion entered my head to see the island, so I sneaked aboard one of the small boats. Silver spotted me just as we landed and called out to me, but by then I was several hundred yards ahead of the rest, and soon I had hidden deep in the undergrowth. After a while, I heard voices nearby. It was Long John Silver, trying to convince one of the last honest men to join his side. The man defied him, and then boldly turned his back and walked away. Grabbing a tree to steady himself, Long John hurled his crutch. To judge from the sound, the man's back was broken on the spot, but he had no time to recover. Silver, agile as a monkey, even without leg or crutch, was on top of him in a moment, and had twice buried his knife up to the hilt in that defenseless body. The world swam around me in a whirling mist. When I came to, the monster had pulled himself together, his crutch under his arm, his hat upon his head. Everything else was unchanged, and it seemed unreal that a human life had been cruelly cut short a moment since before my eyes. As soon as I was clear of the thicket, I ran as I had never run before, scarcely minding the direction of my flight, so long as it led me from the murderers, and as I ran, my fear grew into a kind of frenzy. It was all over, I thought. There was nothing left for me but death by starvation, or by the hands of the mutineers. All this while, I was still running, and without taking any notice, I had drawn near to the foot of the little hill, where the 2 peaks, to a place where the live oaks seemed more like a forest trees in size. The air, too, was fresher than down beside the marsh. And here, a new alarm brought me to a standstill with a thumping heart. There, in a clearing, stood a sunburned man, with long hair and a beard, clad only in a tattered sail. He ran to me eagerly, crying out that he hadn't seen another human being in years. "Who are you?" I asked. "Ben Gunn," he answered, and his voice sounded hoarse, like a rusty log. "I'm poor Ben Gunn, I am, and I haven't seen another human being these 3 years." "3 years!" I cried. "Were you shipwrecked?" "Nay, mate," said he. "Marooned." I knew this stood for a horrible kind of punishment among buccaneers, in which the offenders left behind, with a little powder and shot, on some desolate island. "Marooned 3 years ago," he continued, "and lived on goats since then, and berries, and oysters. What do you call yourself, mate?" "Jim," I told him. "Now, Jim, you tell me true. Ain't that Flint's ship?" he asked. At this, I began to believe that I had found an ally, and I answered him at once. "It's not Flint's ship. Flint is dead, but there are some of Flint's hands aboard. Worse luck for the rest of us." "Not a man with one leg?" he gasped. "Silver?" I asked. "Ah, Silver, that were his name," he said. "He's the cook, and the ringleader, too." I told him the whole story of our voyage, and the predicament in which we found ourselves. He heard me with the keenest interest, and when I was finished, he patted me on the head. He promised to help me, if he might only escape the island with us. He told me where I might find his little homemade boat, hidden in a cove. Then suddenly, the island bellowed to a thunder of a cannon. "They have begun to fight!" I cried. "Follow me!" I began to run towards the anchorage, my terrors forgotten, while, close at my side, the marooned man trotted easily and lightly. "Keep to your left, Jim, under the trees. Ah, there's a cemetery. I came here and prayed now and then, when I thought it might be Sunday." He kept talking, neither expecting nor receiving any answer. The cannon shot was followed, after a considerable interval, by a volley of small arms. Then, not a quarter of a mile in front of me, I beheld the Union Jack flutter above a wood. I ran toward it and found the stockade I had seen marked on the map, which was being stoutly defended by my friends. They had fled there with arms and some provisions, and now the pirates, led by Long John Silver, were approaching. I scaled the wall to welcoming cries and went to work keeping the guns loaded, while my friends fired continually, killing a number of rogues who scaled the wall or rushed upon the fortress. At last, the pirates retreated, leaving many of their own dead, and several of ours. We held a somber meeting and decided that our only chance of success lay in setting the ship adrift, while the rogues were encamped on shore, thereby cutting off their supplies and means of escape. No sooner had I heard this than I thought of Ben Gunn's boat, and without a word, I stuck a pistol in my belt and was off.